everybody, my dear classmates and Kenan Hocam. Today I'm going to present you the results of a research called From Plodder to Creative Feedback in Teacher Education. You can see from the title that we are going to focus on the role of feedback in teacher education today. The article is by Nur Kurtoğlu Huten and it's a case study. Let's continue. If you were here, now I would ask you this question, what the research is about. Unfortunately, we are not able to see each other, and so I'm going to be answering all my questions by myself. Here there is an illustration I made which kind of summarizes what the research is about. You see a yellow face which refers to teacher educator, in this context also the researcher, and some green faces here, student teachers, Mary, Sam, Jack, Lisa. And the main thing that is happening between them is that there is confirmatory feedback from the teacher educator and the peers to the student teacher who acts some kind of teaching, who performs some kind of teaching. After the observation in the feedback session, they give feedback to each other. Okay, but here the type of feedback is a little bit different. It's not a regular feedback, it's confirmatory feedback, and I'm going to share the details with you further. Alright, now focus on the extract taken from the research. It's the dialogue after the observation within the group of student teachers and the researcher, mainly the teacher educator. They are now commenting on what Jack did, and we see that they are really impressed from Jack's performance. They are saying, "You were so natural, it was so lovely, wonderful," and mainly they are emphasizing that Jack was very creative. On the other hand, Jack is also getting some corrective feedback from the researcher. The researcher mentions that the session, the teaching practice was a bit longer than it should be. But mainly the feedback type here is confirmatory. Alright, now let's clear up all these elements. As you know, the main components of teacher education, initial teacher training courses or education are teaching practice and post-observation feedback. We show to our teacher educators what we can do. They give us some feedback upon their observation. And the feedback is simply the talk between us, between the educators and us. And also, it could be within the student teachers. Alright, but this feedback happens in various ways. For instance, I have been constantly repeating confirmatory feedback, so now finally I'm explaining what it is. It's a positive feedback in the form of praise, confirmation. As you see from the picture, Bush is patting on the shoulders of putting on the back of Putin, maybe saying bravo, good job, aferin. So confirmatory feedback is simply this: you're appraising, showing some kind of praise. What about the other type of feedback, for instance corrective feedback? It's not saying that you made a mistake and I'm correcting it. No, it says that there could have been other alternative options that could have been done in your teaching practice. Besides, the feedback that is happening in this research is in a group mode. It's not simply happening between two people, it's happening in a group. Everybody is contributing to it. But what is all this based on? What is the literature behind this? If you remember from our lesson, last week's lesson, we talked about intervention types. And you see there are two main categories, authoritative and facilitative. Facilitative is green, it's softer, it's kind of better because it involves cathartic, catalytic, supportive, friendly type of intervention. The authoritative one is strict, it's telling you what to do, what not to do, transmitting information. Well, obviously we kind of favor the facilitative intervention. And next to it you see appreciative inquiry, which is something not just pedagogical, it's actually in other sciences as well. It means you're appreciating and valuing the best of an action. Like somebody is doing something, you are not focusing on the problem solution or the problem, but you are focusing on what was done good. You are focusing on the good outcome of something. All right. And this could be combined with pedagogy as well, appreciative pedagogy. And how can we do it? We can do it by confirmatory feedback, for instance. So how does it work? If you give positive feedback to people, to student teachers, for instance, their self-efficacy level increases. They are now aware of what they already do well, what they already have in them. Now we are focusing on the potentially good things. We are not just criticizing or giving advice, but we are focusing on what they can already do. All right. So hereby the research, starting from this point, focuses and investigates student teachers' views of peer and teacher educator feedback received on their teaching practices. Where was this conducted? Well, it was conducted in a satellite course during 2 separate 1 month, 100-hour course, and there was there were a lot of data sources, and normally like it's something to be jealous of, having so many data sources in your research. It's something very good. It makes it kind of more credible. You see, student teacher diaries, research diary, observation of the student teachers, video recordings, written feedback, so on and so forth. Don't worry, don't be scared. We are not going to focus on all of them in this research, because the researcher also kind of shortened the research because of time and space limitation, and focused on a few cases and a few data sources. Case studies are my favorite, actually. Although we just focus on a few people, the data we get, the findings are a lot. They give us a lot of information to think about. Alright, let's then go to findings. Well, you remember the popular guy Jake, who got compliments from everybody? He answered a question at the end of the course, and he specifically mentioned that being told that he was creative had a life-changing effect on him. And then the researcher got excited and asked Jack to further illustrate this. How did this change your life, Jack? She asked. And Jack said that before I was a plodder. I was always sticking with the rules. I was very traditional. But now that everybody is complimenting on my being creative, not only in one session but in many sessions, I kinda noticed that now I'm aware of the fact that I can be creative from now on. Whether my ideas work or not, I can do something creative in my lessons. Now I'm aware of that. You see, the transformation has started here. And other peers, of course, they are also impressed by this. Now they are mentioning Jack. For instance, Lisa, in her diary entry, she mentions that Jack's being creative was very influential on her. Now she questions herself whether she could be as creative as well, because the creative lessons surely make students keep interested in the lesson. Mary, on the other hand, comments on the question what she believes she has learned from the group feedback session, and again she mentions Jack's creativity. Now she thinks that you can learn from your peers, not only from the teacher educator, but your peers with their actions and ideas can contribute to your teaching practices. So although I didn't mention, there was another finding about Jack's future teachings. After the research, the researcher and Jack came together and talked about how it was going in his teaching, and he mentioned that now he's really kind of creative all the time. He's trying new things. You see, it wasn't only limited to the research time. It affected his after teaching, after research period as well. Sorry, I couldn't make it very clear, but hopefully you understand what I mean. Alright, now let's discuss all of the things we have observed so far. So far we noticed that confirmatory feedback really works and it's good. How? because it facilitates powerful teacher learning and change mainly. On the other hand, it boosts confidence in the student teachers, motivate them, provide them with new insights into new perspectives. As you saw in the findings part, Jake was kind of changing, and the other peers were also were affected from this change, but they were learning. Learning doesn't only happen as a result of, hearing new things, but it can also occur as a result of feedback. This is actually one of the points of the research. All right, but what kind of change are we talking? This is not a regular change, it's a divergent change. It is triggered by positive feelings and positive self-image. This way, teachers are now pushed out of their boundaries. They are now changing themselves in a way that they don't repeat the good things they do, but now they are looking for other good things. Now they are going beyond their boundaries and limits. Okay, so far so good. All right, the most important part for me, implications. Yeah, why have we discussed those things? Why have we learned those things? Well, okay, confirmatory feedback is good, but we shouldn't forget that we also need corrective feedback. I mean, not everything we do is superb or always perfect. If something is not going well or as expected, it should be also provided with a solution or an alternative. So confirmatory feedback and corrective feedback should go hand in hand. They are both significant, and confirmatory feedback should not be just perfunctory. We shouldn't do it for the sake of doing it. It should have a meaningful purpose behind, and it should be very specific, the most important thing, because Jack, as you remember, got his feedback in a very clear way, very specific way. It was specifically mentioned that he was creative in blah blah sense, and then he created some meanings out of this and gave way to his teaching style for the future. Alright, and these are the signalers of confirmatory feedback that could be used by the researcher and the peers. For instance, another thing I was very impressed with the lesson is, what's quite striking with the lesson is, it was good to see we are not saying simply good job, bravo. We are illustrating our point, making an explanation, and being specific. Thank you for this, thank you for listening to this presentation. Hopefully I made my points clear to you. Hopefully we gained something out of this presentation, all of us. If you have further comments, especially feedback, you can give it in the comment section. I am open to all kind of feedback and criticism. Thank you very much. See you in other presentations. Bye bye.